Hello, Ben. Welcome.
Hi, Carmen. Thanks for having me.
Sorry, guys, for the background noise because my neighbor is renovating his apartment. So I'll try to remove it. But yeah, sorry about that. So I'm glad to have you here on Asian Business Owners. So, Ben, you're in Taiwan.
I've been based in Taiwan for 9 years, originally from Australia, and I was born in Singapore. My mum's Singaporean, so I've spent a fair bit of time in Asia now.
Okay. You are a public speaking coach and also branding coach. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, my background was in teaching, originally an educator, and then I moved into public speaking coaching over the past few years. It's related to my work in teacher training, where I was doing a lot of workshops. So, I found an opportunity to help people there. And I do work mostly with non native English speakers as well. So, kind of drawing on my background with English teaching and other things. The branding
Mm.
part sort of comes in based on the work that I've been doing with them to, I guess the fundamental problem that I'm solving is around confidence and communication. So I felt that communication and personal branding go hand in hand, and that essentially the way you communicate is a big part of your personal brand. So I take a communication angle to personal branding as well, and then applying some of the skills I've learned in content creation and other areas.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I talk a lot about personal branding in my LinkedIn post, in my content, because it's really something that I had to do, start doing and learning. I don't think I'm so bad at it. I think it's really something when you're a business owner, you learn along the way, but you actually, I mean, except if you have a coach specifically to improve that, I guess a lot of business owners just figure it out themselves and they try things and make mistakes, and that's fine. But it seems like it's a domain that is quite vague for many people, right? This
Yeah.
is also what you observed with your clients.
Absolutely. So I think because I mean, it's a Google trending word at the moment. Everyone's very excited around personal branding, and I also do see content creation and personal branding as a huge opportunity, obviously for us as professionals living today. So yeah, I think my own experience with personal branding was that I thought that I had to project something that wasn't authentic. And so what I'm really working on now is really using this journey of defining my personal brand to understand a little bit more about myself. And this actually comes from the expertise of Matt Gray. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Matt Gray, but he's a personal branding coach. He works with founders, and I just really resonated with his philosophy around it, where it is a little bit more. It involves a little bit more of like the hoo hoo kind of stuff, like a little bit more fluffy stuff that people might say, but for me, yeah, entrepreneurship and branding is very much about self discovery. So
Mm.
that's what I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to do for others and also for myself. Yeah.
Would you advise to have like maybe a main theme, if I may say, like an editorial line, even though we're not journalists here, but if you from your personal branding content, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever, do you think we need to have a like a common thread that we talk about?
Yeah, I think that it should be a series of threads. And I will just admit that this is something that I am still working on. And I basically what I'm doing is sharing what I learn with the people that I work with. So I think that there are a range of common threads that make us unique. And it's just about discovering those and having the confidence to share them authentically. So for me, my mixed background is a big part of it. Me living in Taiwan is a big part, but also the fact that I love hiking and I love those types of activities. I want to incorporate that in. And that's what I'm actively looking at doing more. So, how can I incorporate my love of hiking into my personal brand? And yeah, and then from there, discovering those threads, but ideally wanting to be coherent across all the platforms, including the work that I do in person, as I do a fair bit of presenting and public speaking in person in Taipei.
Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I love to. I try also to mix my personal life in the the personal brand content that I share because I think it makes it more human and maybe people remember more a story and a human rather than just a lesson you learned. You know what I mean? Um, okay, okay. So I'm actually on the right track based on what you said. Um, now talking more specifically about public speaking. So this is a topic that people are afraid of. From my perspective, like I saw people around me, it even starts at school, when you have to go like on stage and present your work or answer the teacher's questions or anything like that. And I think it's daunting for many people, even for me. I mean, we're not born to be comfortable doing that. So it's obvious that we have to learn more about it. But I'm curious to ask you, what's the number one mistake people make when it comes to speaking in front of a public?
Mm. I wanted to mention something when you mentioned the fear around public speaking. I heard this theory, which I'm not sure if it's true, but I like the narrative anyway. There's a theory around one of the reasons why we get so afraid when we have to speak in front of a large group of people is because historically, unless we were a king or a queen, you don't stand up in front of a group of people and have a good result. Like if you're standing up in front of a huge group of people, you've done something wrong, right? Or you're in trouble. So there was a theory that basically thinks that that's part of the reason why we've evolved to fear public speaking. And it is listed as like the number two biggest fear that people have, like out of everything in the world, anything in life. So yeah, it's a real thing. And it really just comes down to like a set of skills. So I think coming back to you talking about like the number one mistake with public speaking, I mean, firstly, just for context, I think it depends a lot on the person because everyone is a little bit different and everyone brings different strengths and weaknesses to public
Yeah.
speaking. But the most coherent theme, I think, would be focusing a little bit too much on yourself and not
Mm.
enough on the audience or the people that you're talking to, and forgetting that although you're giving a speech in front of people and they're not really talking, they're still engaging. It's still an exchange. And so you
Yeah.
can exchange through, like saying, raise your hand if you think this, or it's their body language or the eye contact that you make with them. And the more you can lean into that exchange and the more that you can, I would say, almost obsess about the people that you're talking to, the better your result will be in public speaking, in my opinion.
Mm.
So,
But
yeah.
it seems also that you need to have your brain, like different brains, because you're focused on what you're saying. You're focused also, I guess, on your posture as well and on the interaction with people. And I think that's what makes it difficult to be a good public speaker because you have to think about so many things. And well, I don't have much experience around this, but with the podcast, I have this experience of speaking, and now I'm more comfortable doing it. But I realized that I needed my brain to be focused on the guests, what they're saying, my questions, what I will say next, the camera, the frame, the mics, all of this. So it's actually more than just speaking, right? Be
Absolutely.
self-aware. Yeah.
So I consider doing a podcast interview as one of the more challenging forms of public speaking, not just for the participants, but also for the interviewer. Just like a panel discussion, I think someone who can lead a panel discussion really well is very. I don't want to use the word talented because I think it's just a skill set that you can learn, but it's very impressive when someone can navigate and respond so quickly that way. So I think that the skills involved with public speaking, though, first of all, as you mentioned, there's so many things to think about, but there's a lot of different areas that you can basically drive down the amount of cognitive load required for you to perform that just purely through practice. So, I mean, the first part would be thinking about the content. If you really know what you're talking about and you're very passionate about it, you'll be able to enter flow states. You'll just be as if you're just talking to a friend, and the cognitive load required to do that will be very minimal. But then you can focus more of your energy on the actual audience. And I think that those are the proportions that you're looking for. Maybe like 10-20% on what you're saying, maybe 10-20% on like where you're standing, what you're doing with your hands, if you have some certain habits, but then like 60-70-80% on the audience and who you're actually talking to, like being purposeful about how you engage with them. But once again, it does depend on the form of public speaking too. And so, yeah, once again, just coming back to what you do in terms of interviewing people, you have to make sure that you give most of your attention and energy to what I'm saying and then responding appropriately and thinking of where to go next. And that is a skill in itself.
What are the three things to keep in mind when presenting, whether it's in front of your manager, your team, or a wider audience?
Three things to keep in mind when you are presenting to an audience, and we can assume that it's like a high stakes situation. Other than keeping some capacity to be aware of what the audience is doing and being aware of who you're talking to, I think that's obviously a really important one. Maybe more tangible aspects would be around some of the mechanics, like the skills involved that you can keep in mind. You might hear this a lot. I think a lot of public speaking coaches talk about this a lot, but simply just, for example, slowing down your rate of speech, especially at the beginning in the first 30 seconds, is so incredibly powerful. And it's just so underrated as a skill set. And people don't realize that it is a skill set. They don't realize that, like, hey, we actually need to practice how we, our rate of speech and how we actually slow that down. So I think, yeah, pretty much for anyone that I work with at the very beginning, in any capacity, we usually start by practicing slowing down the rate of speech and having variation in the rate of speech. And then also taking pauses, purposeful pauses. There is so much power in a pause, so much happens in the absence of sound. So I think for anyone presenting, especially if you're a little bit nervous, you slow down your rate of speech. You say, make sure you know your stuff, but then obviously other things, slowing down your rate of speech, keeping some capacity for the audience, and then finding your feet quickly. And so that you can enter that flow state and you're just talking to people about something that you're passionate about or something that you're interested in. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, about the speed. Yeah, that's something I remember from, my classes when I was a student. It's so powerful actually to pause. And when you think about, TED Talks or even huge famous entrepreneurs on stage, they're pausing a lot. It adds something to the speech, I guess.
Yeah.
Um Now, three quick fixes that people who are listening to us can apply right away after this listening to this episode to improve their public speaking.
Sure. Well, I would say those two that we just touched on are very important. Being able to slow down your rate of speech, that's number one. And taking purposeful pauses and practicing what that's like. I think that there are tons of resources online that can support you with that. And shout out to my own online community. I have a bunch of resources as well that just is purely targeted on practicing those two skills. So if you want like maximum impact in terms of the amount of time you need to spend on a skill, slowing down your rate of speech is number one. Taking purposeful pauses is another one. And I know that everyone is always looking for quick fixes, and in communication, people want the pain points to go away quickly. I want to talk, maybe just reframe that a little bit and talk about the, let's say, quick or the most efficient in the long run. Like, what is the best thing you can do to fix communication problems? And like, really it comes down to what I describe as just preparation. I think people really underestimate the power of preparation, not just for the thing that you are preparing for, but the impact that has for all the other things that you will do in the future. So for example, if I spend, like 2 hours of my time preparing for our conversation today and making sure that I'm really clear about what it is I want to talk about, it's not just about our chat today. That our chat becomes a database from which I draw from when I'm networking, when I want to create content, when I'm doing another speech, because all of these are topics I've talked about before. These are things that I talk about regularly, and clarity is distilled over time through talking about them over and over again. And so you can't expect to be able to nail it first time with a new concept. And that is also why being able to speak clearly about something demonstrates expertise. So it's not a quick fix, but it is one that if you just invest some time in understanding what you're talking about confidently, it will filter into so many other parts of your speaking. And if you do that enough, then you become an overall confident communicator. That's what I see. So yeah, preparation is so important.
If we go back to personal branding, then I get that a lot from people I meet or even clients or other entrepreneurs and guests. So they don't know what to talk about. They have a business or they have a job and they have, they want to do something. They want to speak on LinkedIn, but they don't know what to say. And to me, because it's me and I know my topic, I I just get inspired. And then I guess it's like a muscle. Like the more you practice, then the more you learn how to phrase it, how to frame even a story that could sound pointless. For example, I published this post on LinkedIn saying that I stopped alcohol for 3 weeks and I managed to tie it to entrepreneurship. And people loved it because I said, like, with entrepreneurship, you have ups and downs and mood swings. And with alcohol, it actually amplifies this. So when you stop alcohol, then your mood is more steady, let's say.
Mhm.
And people loved it and they were sharing their experience with alcohol and things like that. So, what would you tell people who want to share more personal brand content, but they're not inspired and then don't know where to start?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I think that just reflecting on my own journey, it comes, I mean, primarily the first part is just it comes from the people that you work with. So all the things, just having the discipline to track the questions that you're being asked on a daily basis, to track the things that you're talking about on a daily basis, including the questions that you're asking me today. This is your content. And then being able to put it through your own lens for the people that you're working for. Or perhaps, I know a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs have their own journey, and then they take a broad concept and then apply it to themselves and then share that with people who are going through the same journey. If that was for example, like I'm helping Australians with a certain problem, for example. I think one of the challenges for me, often in working with non-native English speakers, is that although I have learned a second language, I've gone through that process myself in learning Chinese, but I am not a non-native English speaker. And so sometimes I have to ask more questions and be more proactive about the specific problems that they're having. Yeah. So I think just being very aware of the types of questions that people are asking is really important, and just having the confidence to talk about that, but also to make sure that you don't obsess about it being perfect. And I think most of my social media experience, I have been pretty happy just to slap things together and just do a basic level. And what I'm looking at more now is the reverse of that, the next level, which would be to have more. I want to add more like creativity and more artistry to the art of content creation, because I think that I have built the foundations already with some of the work that I've done in the past by just getting content out there and doing the basics. But it just depends on where you're at as well. So you learn a
Mm.
lot from actually doing it. I'm sure it's the same for you. You've learned a lot from just putting together a video and sharing it, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
having that sort of roll through in your mind, being like, oh, I could have improved in this way, that way, etc. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learned to be comfortable also with content that is not perfect. It will never be perfect. And that's okay. And I keep having fun trying new things, new formats. For example, a format like this that is super practical is kind of new because before it was only long format interview. I always say, keep having fun. Otherwise, don't take yourself too seriously. Even, I guess, even when you speak in front of an audience, like they're also human beings. And if you, I don't know, if you spread this energy of like you're having fun and you're okay with that, I guess it gives them a different experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
I, just to add to that,
yeah,
I heard something the other day that was saying like, you've got these content pillars that you create that's all strategic, and it's be like, I'm going to create this kind of content, this whatever. But if you just have a random idea, just try it, just share it. And that's the difference with a personal brand, and I think that's the flexibility that we have in personal branding rather than maybe branding for a company where it's a little bit different. Yeah, but even they can
yeah,
apply the principles too, right?
yeah, yeah. Be flexible, yeah, not stuck in your format, in your strategy. Okay, let's wrap up with one last question. Can you tell us one exercise that we can practice right after listening to this episode?
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit. I think that the one exercise that applies to everybody, as far as I can see, and I don't think I've ever worked with anyone that this didn't apply to, but basically, having the discipline to be able to go back over something that you've created or like recorded or a speech that you've given and really try to enhance it. And it actually doesn't have to be a speech. It can just be, if you've got a list of 5 deep questions that are related to perhaps talking about the work that you do, then doing it, posting it, or like having it somewhere where you've got a specific example, but then having the discipline to actually come back and enhance it with certain tools. I mean, you can enhance it a lot just from your own perspective. And then there are like communication tools or persuasive speaking tools that can help with that process as well. But you can learn so much just from that process. And I see that as being one of the biggest barriers for people to make faster progress because it does require discipline. It's uncomfortable to go and listen to your own answer and you'd be like, I can just do it better or do it differently without having to do that. So there's like an emotional part to that as well. But people who have done that, have taken my advice and actually done that, have made faster progress and had more confidence in being able to talk about those topics, the topics that are important to them, which is usually their personal life and their career.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Being comfortable listening even to the sound of your voice was definitely something for me. All right. And do you have any tools, online tools, or you were talking about the resources you provide to your clients? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I run an online community. It's a free online community called Oracy Club. We basically it's the place where I gather my clients. Originally, it was just where I gathered my clients, but now I've opened it up to anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about communication. You can come in, you can do some activities. You can also join a free weekly workshop that we run every Sunday called Sunday Club. So, yeah, if you're interested
Cool.
to get some feedback or some thoughts, yeah, you can come and hang out with us.
Okay, cool. I'll add the links in the description of the episode. Thank you so much, Ben. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
There are loads of practical tips we can take up from this episode. So I'll also do the exercise myself for my content.
Great. Yeah,
Let's
please do.
see. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Thank you.